Sometimes when you're moving around inside your pivot table, the fields list over on the right will just up and disappear for seemingly no reason. If that happens, all you have to do is click in one of the cells in the pivot table. That'll turn things back on over here. Now, your pivot table is broken down into three main groups. Over here, we've got our field lists, and this is where we turn things off and on that we want to see. Underneath that, we have four sections that determine where and how those fields are going to be displayed. We can determine if they're going to appear as row labels or as column labels. We can determine how the values are going to be treated. Are they going to be added up or averaged or counted? Anything like that. And then over here on the left, we've got the main area where the results of our pivot table reside. Now, what I want to show you is some of the simple stuff that you do with pivot tables to rearrange the data. You can really view everything exactly how you want to. So you can rearrange things. You can, turn things off and on, but then you can move them around. That's why it's called a pivot table, because you can change or pivot the point that you're referencing. You can pivot the data that you're referencing. Let's say in this example, I'm not concerned with the model anymore. So I've just got my summary of totals for each category. But let's say that I would like a breakdown of which brands these categories are divided up into, so I can see, if there's a specific brand I've got a lot of product of, or maybe one that I don't have a lot of product of. First off, Excel and the pivot table functionality is pretty smart. It tries, based on what types of values are in your cells, it tries to determine what you're trying to do. For example, when I add total value, when I take that total value and I put it on my pivot table, it automatically tries to give me a sum of that. If I wanted to change it, I can click the drop down. Let's say we want to change it from total value to just a count, so I can see how many of each thing I have in the different categories. Click the drop down, and unfortunately this is going to be somewhat off of your screen because of the recording area that I have. But at the very bottom of the drop down list is an option that says Value Field Settings. When we click that, and we get to this dialog box here, and I can go, of course, to, instead of sum, I'll select count. So we click OK. That gives me now my count. I know that I've got one acoustic bass in stock. It should just be one acoustic bass. Let me double check my inventory here. Acoustic bass, I've got one there. Yep, doesn't look like I have any more. Okay, just double checking that. Acoustic guitar, I've got 6, etc. on down the list, and I know I've got 41 total. This, incidentally, that's what I was checking. This is not the number of inventory that I have in stock. This is the number of occurrences of that particular category. I knew there was something fishy about that because I know I got way more than 41 of these things. So if I was to add quantity on hand, if I just check this, see what happens there? It gives me the sum of quantity on hand. And that is, in fact, the other number that I'm looking for is just how many of those I actually do have. So this has given me a total of every item that is in that category, and then this has given me a total of the number of items that I do have in that category. Okay, now, what if we want to display things a little bit differently? Like if I was to turn brand on, notice that the brand falls underneath each one of the categories. Okay, what if I wanted to have the brand appear across the top? Well, let me turn that off. Whenever you want to add something, you can click it to turn it on, or you can drag it directly in the box that you want, that describes essentially how you want to display that. I could drag it right down here to row labels, and that would give me the same thing that I had before. But I could drag it to column labels as well, and even after the fact, I can still grab it from here and drag it over to column labels. So now what I'm getting is my categories on the left, and then the breakdown of the brands in each one of those categories. And again, these are items. These are not inventory quantities. This just means that I have one Fender acoustic bass that, as far as not having one physical bass, but I have that entry in there once. I have 3 different Martin acoustic guitars, 3 different Taylor electric acoustic or acoustic electric guitars. Another way we can move things around is to click the drop down here and select move to, wherever. We can move it to row labels so it goes back. So each one of these we can move around a variety of different ways. Excel does try to detect what kind of data, like I said before, that you're working with. Let's click the drop down here and go to remove field. Turn that off. And remember, we've got fixed retail value, and I'll turn that on. And look at what happens here. Notice that it's appearing over here like in its own category when you might expect that to be added up. But you'll remember that on our actual sheet here, the fixed retail value is really text. Remember, we were manipulating all of that stuff? So this is displaying as text. So whenever we pull that data into the pivot table, it's seeing it as text. So it doesn't try to add it up automatically. I want to show you that because I want you to see that it is, it's attempting to do things logically based on, what your actual data is. Let's say that I wanted to move it over to value because I'm trying to say, no, Excel, I want you to add this up. Well, I move it over there and it defaults to count. The reason is, again, it's not real numbers. It's just text. And Excel knows, hey, you can't multiply text. You can't add up text. All you can do numeric-wise, as far as values, is count how many of them you've got. So let's click the drop down here and go to field values for our total thing, and we'll get the sum of that again. So now we have the sum of the category, any items in category acoustic bass, and then we have the count of those as well. We have the sum of bass amp, the value there, and then we have the count of those as well. And when you click outside, that's when this stuff turns off. So let's click that to turn it back on. Unfortunately, that is about as exciting as it gets with pivot tables. But, people are really scared of it, and there's no need to be. It's specifically designed to allow you to go in quickly and evaluate a large amount of data. In the example that I've used here, we've just got, 40-some examples of inventory items. This list right here could be thousands of items long. It could be different kinds of things, maybe sales that are divided by salesperson, geographically, whatever. You can go in there and you can pull out some information, extract it very quickly. And it's not something, it's designed so easy to use, right, that it's not something you have to leave it there and think, okay, I've got my complicated pivot table set up. Now don't touch it. You don't have to. I can just, turn things off and on at whim and see what exactly, the information that I'm looking for very quickly. Now, it's not arranged very pretty. It's still numbers. Granted that it's summary, so it's more than likely a lot easier to deal with than, looking at stuff like this and by all means trying to figure out what everything is. But I'm going to show you in the next video how that we can take this basic, this same type of information, and instead of a pivot table, we'll create a pivot chart. And that's what, the upper management kind of people, that's the kind of stuff that they want to see because they're all about, graphics and visual, and they're not that much into numbers. So that's what we'll look at in the next video.